There is a cartel that controls most of the world's supply of one precious liquid. It sets production quotas. It fixes prices. It keeps a strategic reserve in guarded warehouses. It is not oil. It's maple syrup, and someone robbed it for $18 million. Open the file. The Canadian province of Quebec produces roughly 70% of all the maple syrup on Earth. And since the 2000s, nearly every drop legally flows through one organization, the Federation of Quebec Maple Syrup Producers. If you make syrup in Quebec, the Federation decides how much you may sell, who you may sell it to, and at what price. Farmers who sell on the side get fined, watched, and rated. Canadians call it what it is, the syrup OPEC. To keep prices high and steady, the cartel does what all cartels do. In big harvest years, it takes syrup off the market and stores it. Millions of pounds of it, in white steel barrels, stacked to the ceiling of anonymous warehouses in rural Quebec. The Global Strategic Maple Syrup Reserve. A barrel of syrup is worth many times a barrel of crude oil, which means those quiet warehouses hold liquid treasure. And in 2011, somebody noticed exactly how quiet they were. The thieves were insiders, men who rented space in the very warehouse where the reserve slept. Over months, they trucked barrels out, siphoned off the syrup, and returned the barrels. First, they refilled them with water. Later, they got lazy and returned them empty. Nearly 10,000 barrels, 3,000 tons of syrup, worth around 18 million Canadian dollars, walked out of the reserve one truckload at a time. Moving stolen syrup turned out to be easy because syrup has no serial number. The loot was trucked across provincial lines and sold into the ordinary market, where it vanished onto grocery shelves and waffles across North America. Millions of people, quite possibly including you, have eaten evidence from this case. The cartel found out the way all embarrassing things are found out, by accident. In the summer of 2012, an inspector doing inventory climbed the stacks and grabbed a barrel to steady himself. It moved. A full barrel weighs over 600 pounds. This one nearly floated. They opened it. Water. Then they opened the next one. Row after row, the reserve was a wall of props. What followed was one of the largest investigations in Quebec police history. Officers tracing trucks, tanks, and brokers across Canada and into the United States. More than 20 people were arrested. The ringleader, a self-described syrup rebel who'd spent years fighting the cartel's rules, was sentenced to prison and ordered to pay back millions, with extra years waiting if he doesn't. And here's the uncomfortable question in the margin of this file. The heist only worked because the cartel had made syrup artificially scarce and expensive, and plenty of Quebec farmers quietly cheered the thieves, because to them the Federation is the real racket, an organization that can seize your harvest for the crime of selling your own syrup. One file, two rackets, one of them entirely legal. The verdict: the price of maple syrup, steady, high, always creeping up, isn't set by nature or by Pancake demand. It's set in meeting rooms, enforced by quotas, and defended by warehouses full of barrels. Wherever a price never seems to move, somebody is holding it still, and whatever is being held still is worth stealing. The syrup file is closed, though statistically, some of the stolen sweetness is still in a pantry near you. If this file made breakfast more interesting, a like tells us to keep following the strange money. Subscribe. The next file is already on the desk. I'm the Money Files. Case closed.